Okay, so what do we know about phases and eclipses so far?
Phases are different shapes of the moon.
Okay, so if you were to tell me different shapes of the moon that you know of, what kind of
Crescent.
phases? What? Crescent?
Um,
So phases are shapes of the moon, and we know of ones like crescent,
full one.
full, what happens when there isn't one? Like new,
Half.
half, quarter. So you could have a half moon, a quarter moon, a new moon, a full moon. So new moon, like it's kind of like there isn't a moon up there. It looks like completely dark.
Oh, that happens a lot of times.
Full moon, yeah, every month. Every month it goes through. This is a cycle. This whole thing is a cycle that goes all the way around.
What about the lunar eclipse? I don't remember.
Well, we haven't talked about eclipses yet. We're just talking phases. Okay, these are the way that we see the moon. So we have crescent, we have full. I started drawing some of these.
The new moon?
Yep, we got the new moon. That's completely dark.
Hey, Stacy.
What's that?
Like when I was doing some of the time stuff, like, they didn't really understand why it showed like the match or put the number in the box and freeze them because when I was looking up there, where they had
Yeah,
the
well,
line.
maybe we'll get to that in a little bit, okay?
I just think these-
What's the difference? Is there a difference between quarter and crescent?
No.
Yes.
I don't know.
What's the difference?
One is like bigger. One has more of
So which one's bigger?
the quarter.
Okay. So this, we're thinking, like if we divide this in half, and then you kind of divide it in half and probably like divide it again, like if we just get a sliver. So in this case, all you'd have is maybe like a very small sliver. And this one, maybe we'd see like, well, obviously we're gonna see half of a half. Does that make sense? So these are not in order, because there is an order to them. Okay, but we'd have the full moon where everything's bright, new moon, everything's dark. Crescent, you just have that little sliver of a moon. Quarter, a little bit more.
Aren't there different crescents though?
There are. There are different crescents, there's different quarters. Right? So it goes through this whole cycle. And that cycle happens once per month. It's about that.
So like you had, so all
It
of the
resets
moons-
like every 28 days.
Also, like all of the moons happen in 1 month.
Yep. So it takes like 28 days for it to go through all 4 cycles. And so some calendars actually will show which phase of the moon starts on which day. Because it's constantly changing, it's constantly filling up and then constantly emptying. Fills up, then empties. But that's the way it kind of appears. It fills up with that light and then empties it. Okay? So we're going to be learning about this pattern of the phases. What do we know about eclipses? We know we had one here in Houston a while ago where we had a solar eclipse. Now what happens with a solar eclipse?
The sun
Blocks.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, so the moon
the moon blocks the sun.
blocks the sun.
Aren't you not supposed to look at that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
not
are.
yet.
You're
You're
allowed to,
never
like,
supposed
you're
to
allowed-
like sit there and stare at the sun.
You can look at the sun, but you have to like special glasses on.
Yeah, that's what we had, is we had those special glasses so that we could actually look because it blocked like 99.99, like it blocked so much of the light in order for that to happen. I don't think I used to have a pair, I don't know if I finally got rid of them. I might have,
Aren't they basically something like that?
used to have them up here, but,
Why?
so the moon blocks the sun. Now, if it blocks it completely, what kind of eclipse do we have?
Lunar.
Is it?
No?
No.
No, it doesn't something change type, like as far as that goes.
You said whenever it blocks.
Okay, if it's complete block,
Umbra.
or if it's a partial. No, well, okay, I'm not getting there yet. Completely blocking the sun, we have a total eclipse.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
What is the different types of eclipses?
Okay. And
Partially.
this one's a partial, where, like, and it's kind of like taking a bite out of the cookie. Like, yeah, it blocked, but how much is being blocked? Okay. So, I think we had a total, didn't we? Or it was fairly close to?
I think so.
I don't, to be honest, I don't really remember. I just remember it blocked much of the sun.
I think
I don't remember whether it was completely total or whether it was just a really large amount partial. And it just depends on where we are here on Earth. Okay, the moon is pretty small. It has a hard time blocking the light from the sun, right?
Yes.
Well, like when you think about the relative sizes of things, you know, we have the sun, where we're just showing like part of the curve, and you know, we have the Earth, and the moon is going to be like that size, right? So it has to get in the way to block stuff, and as these rays, you know, are coming in all directions, you're going to find that there's two different types of shadow that are cast on the Earth. Okay? Two types of shadow.
Wasn't it 2019?
What?
The eclipse.
No, that was.
No, not from here.
I wasn't.
There's always eclipses, but not necessarily from our location.
But the last one where we were visible, I was like in 5th grade.
Yeah, it was several years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? But, so, the moon blocks the sun, and it casts a shadow on the Earth. Okay? And there's two types of shadow.
Oh, that was in 2017.
Okay? There's two types. There is umbra,
And pin.
and there's penumbra. Umbra, penumbra. Okay? Now, what part of the shadow are we in if we're in a total eclipse?
In the umbra?
No,
The umbra. Umbra, we're in that total shadow. Okay? Penumbra,
partial.
we're in that partial shadow. Some lights look at it. Have you seen this when you go outside?
Same what?
Like if you're outside, and you look back at your shadow, do you notice sometimes that there's like the dark shadow, but you can have like lighter shadow?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
What you need to do when you go outside after school today, okay, take a look at that shadow. You can even see it sometimes in different shadows in the room. I don't think that we have anything terribly clear right now. But you're gonna find that there's a dark one where all the light rays were blocked from it in comparison. And then there's gonna be a lighter one where only some of the rays got blocked. Okay? So we can actually have multiple parts to our shadow. Umbra, penumbra. Penumbra, we're only partly in shadow, so we get a partial eclipse. Okay? Umbra, complete, total eclipse. And that's kind of a lot of our main ideas here. Okay, as far as this solar eclipse. But there's another type. What's the other type of eclipse?
Lunar.
Lunar. A lunar eclipse. So here, the solar eclipse, I had have the sun, I have the moon, and I have Earth. How could I have a lunar eclipse?
The earth is between the sun and the moon.
The Earth, so basically the Earth and the moon switch places, right? You're gonna have the Earth blocking light
Oh, no.
going to the moon. You know, that's only gonna happen at a particular time. That's one thing I want you guys to investigate. Lunar eclipse, what phase of the moon does it happen in?
Full
Does it-
moon.
I think it's new.
You think it's new?
Yeah.
Well,
It's
the-
full moon.
I think
Wait,
it's
wait,
full.
wait, say, what?
It's full moon.
I think it's new.
Okay, so if we have, let's think about this. We have to have the sun. And we already know that the Earth has to be between the sun and our moon. Okay, so this is Earth, this is the moon, this is the sun. What phase of the moon will a lunar eclipse happen?
Full.
Why do you guys say full?
Because it's,
Moon passing through the Earth's shadow.
and it has to make a shadow.
It has to make a shadow, so we can't even make a shadow.
Oh, no. It's not.
And the only time that this happens is the other way around, right?
Yep.
So it is during a full moon that we get a lunar eclipse, and we have this lineup of sun, earth, moon, whereas the solar, sun, moon, earth. Now, these happen, you know, quite a lot of the time, but it's only going to affect a small portion of the earth, right? Moon isn't going to be blocking too much light from the sun to the earth. How about the earth blocking light to the moon? Do we talk about partial eclipses on the moon?
No.
No, we don't. So, we're gonna watch a little video, and then I will let you continue to work on some notes or questions. So let's take a look here. See if they signed me out again already. Probably. Ooh, I might have been lucky. Okay. Yep. Do you know what that is, waxing and waning? You ever heard those before?
Yes, I just don't know.
What do you associate them with? I know what I associate them
Waxing
with.
crescent.
I never think of the moon.
Wax.
Wax on,
Wax.
wax off. Just saying. Child of the 80s, right?
A wax and gibbous.
What's gibbous?
A gibbous.
I know, what is it?
Oh.
I know what it is.
Oh.
She's the science teacher.
Gibbous, the best way to explain gibbous, and it's still this phase, the phase of the moon, a waxing or waning gibbous. Means that it's very close to full or very close to new, but it's not quite. Like it just looks like it's almost like misshapen, like someone squished it.
Oh.
And so they call it gibbous.
I used to look at that.
Gibbous. Gibbous.
Have you ever wondered why our moon appears full like this, and then sometimes like this? Hi, I'm Mr. Ryan from Jackson Middle School. Welcome back. Today we're going to learn about the different lunar phases of our moon and what causes them. It's important to have an understanding of the lunar cycles, to have a better understanding of what's happening in our nighttime sky. So I have a model here, and it's important to note that this model is not drawn to scale, and there are limitations to this model. First, the Earth would be a little bit larger in this model if this were the size of the moon, and second, the moon would be much further away from the Earth. So in my model, I've got the sun right here, illuminating the moon and Earth system. These drawings are what the moon would look like from Earth, the perspective on Earth, as we move through the lunar cycle. If we were able to hitch a ride on the spacecraft and look down on the Earth-Moon system from our North Pole, we would not see this represented. We would simply see the moon moving in an orbit much like this, and we would not see a change in phases. But here on Earth, our perspective is different. Therefore, we see different phases in the moon. Now, our perspective from the Earth is going to appear as new moon. This is the starting point of our lunar cycle. If we hold our model here, it's clear to see why we see that new moon. The lit portion of the moon is actually on the far side of us. We don't see that because we are viewing the moon from this angle. So again, we see the dark portion of the moon. Now, as we move in this rotation around the Earth, what begins to happen is we start to see a portion of the lit part of the moon, which appears as our waxing crescent. And as we move through this first half of the cycle, we will be waxing to full.
That makes sense.
So we have our waxing crescent, and then it takes us to our first quarter. So as we look up at that moon, the moon appears to be 50-50 with light on the right. And the saying is, light on the right is waxing, light on the left is waning. So we are waxing on to full moon, and then we're going to be waning off. So 90 degrees, we have our first quarter moon. In fact, we'll go ahead and label these first quarter
When you think
moon.
about it, still wax on, wax off works.
When we get
Wax
over
on,
here, the moon appears mostly lit. So the perspective we see is a mostly lit moon, and we call this our gibbous moon, our waxing gibbous, which then takes us here to full. As you look at that moon, because the sunlight is cutting across the Earth to the moon, we see the fully lit portion of the moon. This is going to be our full moon. Now, as we continue moving counterclockwise, we hit our waning gibbous. So this half of the lunar cycle, we're going to be waning off that light. So light will now appear on the left. So we have a waning gibbous as we look down at this model. We see mostly lit, but light on the left and darkness on the right. And as we move down here, we get to our last quarter, and again we see light on the left-hand side of the moon. So when we look at that moon, we'll actually look like this: light on the left and dark on the right. And to our last portion of the phase before we return in our cycle, we have our waning crescent. This waning crescent, you see mostly darkness and a sliver of light, and then back around again here to new moon, which completes our cycle. This cycle takes approximately 29 and a half days. But if you quarter that up into weeks, you can say 4 weeks. So for this first half, going from new to full will take about 2 weeks of waxing, and you'll have an additional 2 weeks of waning. So today, we've learned about the different lunar phases of our moon and what causes them. On your own, determine what our current lunar phase is. Once you've determined our current lunar phase, predict what that phase will look like in 1 week's time. Good luck.
Okay. So let's do that then.
Phase. On your own.
Oh, I want it exactly there. So actually, part of my drawing from earlier was a little incorrect. Just realizing that now. Okay? We talked about quarters and crescents, and we said, oh, well, the crescents were like this, and quarters were like this, and crescents were even smaller. No, the quarter is where we're just seeing that half part of it. So, yeah, like, and so half equals quarter in this case. Okay? And that's something that I had forgotten or mixed up as I put it on the board there. You can see with this gibbous, like I said, it ends up looking kind of squished. It's not the quarter, it's not the crescent, it's almost the opposite of the crescent, right? So new, young is where you just see a very small sliver. Usually that's not really talked about quite so much. New, waxing crescent, wax on, wax on, wax on.
Right.
The wax is all completely applied, right? And we start waxing off. We wane and wane and wane. I have never heard these terms before in my life, quite honestly, other than this video. Old and young, where it's just that very little bit of a moon that we're seeing. So we fill up from the right, so it was light on the right.
And then it goes.
Fill up, and then it starts to empty itself. So, do we know what phase of the moon we're in right now?
Yes, we have no moon on January 13th at 12:02 a.m.
Okay, so she said as of January 13th, it was new moon.
Wow.
So if we were in new moon, what are we transitioning to?
Winter, young. Oh.
The young one.
Waxing.
We are waxing towards, we're probably like a waxing crescent.
Right now?
Yeah, that's what we're approaching, is this waxing crescent. We're probably past the young already. Over this waxing crescent, we're moving towards our first
For.
quarter. Okay? So, what you need to do, finish up your reading, your questions, your notes, whichever you choose to show me that you've done that reading,
Yes, ma'am.
so that we can do a couple activities tomorrow. And then we'll probably do a quiz together on Monday. What's that? Yeah, do you need to take pictures? Take pictures?
I saw it in the assignment that was due on Saturday.
Yes.
Is that,
They're the ones we're gonna be doing tomorrow.
oh,
We'll do it together. Next quiz, I haven't even assigned it yet.
no.
Oh, sorry, Tuesday, Tuesday. Next class is what I'm meaning. What I mean. Okay? So I need to see you reading, taking notes, answering questions. I need to see you interacting with your textbook, please. Because you guys have a lot of knowledge once again, and I'm very pleased for that, because that makes it a lot easier to take in new knowledge as compared to, what? I've never heard this before in my life. Okay, and don't turn things in until there is an attachment there. I need pictures. I need documents. Okay, so you had a question specifically.
Yeah. This one.
Okay, so you're supposed to match it up.
Yes, it was yellow one.
Okay, so
The yellow
the
ones are.
full, the yellow ones are confusing. It's just showing that the side closest to you is what you're seeing. So they were just showing
Yeah.
the side closest to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. That one.
So full moon.
Yeah.
This is the full moon.
Yeah.
That should be fine.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
That helps a whole lot?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that yellow line, I was just confused when I was like, this does not look good.
That yellow line, all it was doing was showing you, hey, this is the half, it was dividing the half that you see and the half that you don't see. Because the half that we see is the side that's always facing us. Do you know that we always see the same side of the moon?
We do.
No.
We do.
Yeah, because it's the orbits swings around the Earth, so for swinging ones.
Well, because we don't see it all day long, right? Although it's there, you only see it during the night. But we're always seeing the same side because even though the moon rotates as well, it rotates in the same sort of 24 hours. We're always seeing the same side. That's why they talk about the dark side of the moon. I don't see it. Questions? Concerns?
Wait, so whenever it's revolving around the sun, does it move slow? Or, like, because, like, whenever it turns one way, doesn't the earth turn too?
Well, everything's always moving. all of these things are constantly moving, and so you have at the same time what we have here is the sun, which technically, like I said, the sun is moving, but we don't really see it, we don't experience it. But around that sun, actually, let me do this in a slightly different way. We're gonna say, here's the sun here, okay? And we know that the earth is following a path and revolving around that sun, which is really, really large, okay? So this is revolving along the orbit, and it's also rotating. We see this spin on its axis. So this revolves and rotates, okay? The moon here is also going around the sun, the moon is going around the earth, which is also going around the sun, okay? And so all of these actions are happening together. It's, I don't know if I have a comparison. None of it stops moving.
No, I can turn it.
You've already turned in the phases and eclipses? Okay. Sounds good. If you have time and really want to, you can always look at the next section, you know it's coming. That'll be next week.
Timmy just
So
goes,
how about that?
no, yeah,
Yes.
Timmy, you look really happy for more notes next week.
What?
You look really happy
We don't ask long.
because you want to do more notes.
Because the school goes by like way faster. I don't know what it is with Monday, but it's just like, it makes the whole week too.
Okay, guys, if you don't want the homework, get it done during school time, please. And remember, you can always, use a pair of earbuds, and you can have the online textbook read to you. If you don't really feel like reading it, you just want to take some notes. Answer some questions.
My brother gave you offer of
What do they have on textbook YouTube?
I'll give you mine. I'll give you myself. Same thing in science degrees.
Wow. That's definitely incentive, huh? Your brother's a smart man. I miss having him here, as painful as he was.
I don't know what
I just.
You're
I'm
finished?
horrible at reading. Oh yeah, I just.
Me too.
Okay, well, I want pictures of that.
Oh yeah, no, I said.
And they've done the eclipses and phases. That's what we're working on right now, eclipses and phases for 5-2. Lesson 2. Everyone should be right now on lesson 2. Is it called total eclipse or total eclipse? I don't think I've heard the term total eclipse. I could see the people who might.
Full moon, sorry.
Yeah, full moon,
And X
total eclipse.
shows the total.
I guess these are like, when I look up there, they're like,
Oh.
or like,
Okay, what? You gotta look at it like this. That's why they put those lines. What you see. Does that make sense? They do that.
Seasons and shadows.
but when I look at lightning crescent on there,
It's the same. It is the same.
Oh,
Right?
the lines,
Does that make sense? Okay. Hey, multiple people are kind of having this issue when they're looking at their print textbook, especially, I don't know if you've noticed it quite so much with the online. When they talk about these phases, we're having a hard time seeing the picture, and I think I'll pull it up for you guys. Okay, the other picture as well as this, if I can. I was gonna hope it behaves.
Phases are caused by emotion.
I might just grab some of this textbook.
Here, you can use mine.
Okay,
There, there.
you may. So, on page 218, before they talk about eclipses, this is when they're wrapping up about the phases. There's the picture with the blue. And they ask you to label these phases. And there's a slightly confusing picture in the center. And they show the moon at different positions, and they put a dotted yellow line through it. That dotted yellow line is trying to show you there's the half on the outside that we don't see, and there's the half on the inside that's facing the earth. That's the part we are seeing. So if you put your finger over it, what you see will match what you see up here. So I would just sit there and go, put my finger over it, and you can match those up. That makes that picture a little bit easier to see. Put this back on Christian's table. Okay? Okay, so right now, this is the north, this is the south, right? You can see that this has North America, this has South America, there's Africa. The north, is that pointed towards the sun, or is the south pointed towards the sun? Okay, so if the north is pointing towards the sun, what season is that? It's closer, it's getting more warmth, more light, more direct rays. Does that make sense? When we're most towards, that's summer. If we were on the other side, when it was most away, it would be winter. The moon phase, well, what do you see? What's facing the earth? Just darkness. Mhm. You got it. You're welcome. Does that make sense? I take pictures of the notes so that I have them. Did you say you had trouble? Yes. Always. You never do sunrise? That's probably why you're not getting 100%. Okay, well, let me know when you're ready. Use this time wisely, guys. Make sure you're using the time. You having troubles? talk about that in the. Yeah, it says, this happens a little bit. So they point out that the far side of the space is away. So the moon rotates and revolves, but it rotates and revolves in the same amount of time. And because of that, we'll always see the same side. Makes it a little bit easier to use. And that makes it easier. Where are we at? You can write the name of the highlighter. I will say, if it accidentally ends up missing, you'll have to remind me. You have the pictures on your phone, right? That happens sometimes for the ones that I can put together. I love the fact that I can give you guys the choices now. Are y'all done with the clip stuff?
Oh, I can't even get mine.
Okay, Christian, please look at stuff people will like.
Yes, ma'am.
Waxing's on the right.
Yes, Ethan. I don't really understand the difference between waning and waxing quarter.
Waning quarter and waxing quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, which side is lit?
The side back, why not?
So if I go left, right,
That one on the right.
left, right,
Waxing
and they
is
said
the
light
one
on the right. Light on the right, it equals our waxing.
And the one
So
on
right side gets light first. When the light is on the left, that means that it's inching out, it's waning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think it was a good question.
Thanks.
They look like they're the same, but it's a matter of the position. So are you reading everything first before you do anything? Or what?